Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. My goal is to be unbiased and transparent. It's a privilege to serve you. This is not an endorsement. Let's get into it. We are in the beautiful Simi Valley, California, Southern California, checking out the IZIP Simi. And it comes in a high step and what I'm calling a mid step. They call it a step through, but you know, that top tube there, it's gonna protect the battery, gives this frame a little bit more strength and reduces frame flex, but I call it a mid step because it's not quite as low as some of these other ones. They're like wave style platform. I like this bike. You know, it's pretty relaxed, it's comfortable. They've got a steel fork that's gonna help dampen some vibration. It's paint matched. Also steel fenders, they tend to be very sturdy and kind of rigid. They might not rattle around as much as aluminum alloy. However, if you scratch them, you could start to get a little bit of rust. Otherwise, the frame is aluminum alloy seat post, and rear rack that's rated up to 55 pounds. It's got a big reflector on it, and then integrated lights. Though I must say the lights are, they're kind of, you know, they're more basic, right? I think this is Fouchon, it's fender mounted, so that's nice. It keeps it clear of any trunk bags or panniers that you might add. The rack itself does have these little loops here for bungee cords and securing light objects on top, and then standard gauge tubing so you could put clip-on panniers, maybe use this for commuting. The headlight, also Fouchon, it's got this like cut-off design, so it's going to try to aim down a little bit and not blind your friends or oncoming traffic. And it does point where you steer since it's mounted to the fork. This is not a suspension fork, right? So it's not quite as heavy, there's not any adjustments, but that steel is going to give you a little bit more comfort like we were talking about, and it's raked out a little bit, so it brings the wheel forward, keeps that fender clear if you're pedaling and turning. Hopefully you won't have any toe strikes. We've got quick release on the front, nice black spokes, black rims, and then these cool flaming tires. Check this out. These are 26 by 2.125 V rubber. I don't know if they have any puncture protection. I don't see any reflective sidewalls or anything. The bike comes in two colors. We're looking at this like salmon with some gray accents, or they have like black with gray accents. And you know, kind of the more masculine, like high step look. You could do a his and hers combination. Quill stem that elevates up and down a little bit. Has like a 30 degree rise right there, brings the handlebars up. I would call these mid-rise, and they sweep back a little bit with these matching flame grips. They've got some chrome accents, but they're plastic, so it's, you know, over time, you can kind of hear that. They might get, you know, the chrome could kind of wear off, and then you'd see the plastic underneath. They're a little bit thicker, though, a little bit fatter, and that's a nice feel. It's not this tiny little thing. It's just a little bit more like a chopper or motorcycle, and again, the flames and stuff kind of matching that theme. Mechanical disc brakes. Two-finger Tektro levers. I've seen this on several of the new IZIP bikes. So over here, we've got the slightly more expensive Brio. It also has fenders, but they're plastic. It's got the suspension fork, the lights. So it's similar. This might be, I would call it a hybrid. You could use this for commuting purposes, maybe a little bit of light trail, especially with that suspension fork. And then you'll notice this one has an adjustable angle stem with like a low-rise flat bar versus swept back. So it'd be neat if you could try these back to back if you were considering one of the IZIP bikes. They are carried in a number of dealers, but they're doing a little bit more like direct to consumer, and then they're partnering with, I think it's Beeline, which is sort of a mobile bike repair delivery service. You could pay a little bit of extra money to get it assembled. Otherwise, these are supposed to be like 95% assembled. I did not set this one up. We're just here at the headquarters, like checking them out, trying to give you guys some insights and do some ride tests. Back to the disc brakes for a minute. You know, they're mechanical, so you could use an Allen key to stretch that wire and dial it in, along with a little barrel adjuster, so you can kind of stretch that out and dial in the feel so that both of those brake levers are giving you a similar reach. But mechanical tend to require a little bit more hand effort than hydraulic. So by having a larger diameter rotor, you're getting a mechanical advantage. You're also getting some nice cooling benefits. Same thing in the back, 180 millimeters. No quick release in the back. It's just using like a 10 millimeter axle with nuts, and then adjustable length kickstand. I like that kickstand. It's got plenty of room. It's not going to interact or create any pedal lock with these cranks. Plastic Welgo pedals. And then this bottom bracket, can't really see it. It's kind of an integrated design that's measuring torque and pedal cadence, while the hub motor is actually measuring speed. So it's got three signals that give this a nice smooth feel compared to a lot of other hub motor powered electric bikes that use cadence sensors. So a lot of times you'll see down here like a plastic disc with magnets, and all that is measuring is whether or not you're pedaling at all. This one measures, yes, are they pedaling? How fast are we going? And how hard are they pushing? And that gives you a natural sort of a smooth arc of power. And because it's so smooth and responsive, it doesn't require motor inhibitors on the brake levers. So that might make the system a little bit more simple and durable, reliable. They do have like a little flick bell right here, which is nice for signaling. I already mentioned the lights as being a nice utility feature. And then the other things that differentiate this is like a larger kind of a comfort saddle here with these rubber bumpers underneath, or elastomers. And then the seat post here, this is rigid, 31.6 millimeter diameter. You could swap that out with a suspension seat post and it would raise your minimum saddle height, but it'd give you a nice cushy feel because again, you don't have suspension fork going on. You just got these slightly larger tires, you know, a little bit of extra volume. For me, a bike like this is really optimal to be used in like a smooth riding condition, something kind of relaxed. And you can even see how the seat post, see how instead of being like straight up and down, it's kind of leaned back. Let's run over here for a second. See how this one's like much more vertical and this one's, it's kind of laid back. That positions the saddle further back. So the taller you make that, the more leg extension, the more foot forward you're gonna get, kind of like sitting on a recliner or something. And it allows you to put your feet down more easily. So you're still getting full pedal extension, but when you put your feet down, you can stabilize the bike. And that's sort of nice. It's sort of a cruiser design. And then back to that fork being raked out. The whole bike is sort of leaned back, and that makes it a little bit smoother, relaxed when you're steering, a little bit less like responsive and twitchy. I think that's a pretty good overview on the bike. I do like how they've customized the frame and sort of inset that battery mount right there. It's not just on top of the tube, they've actually cut it down a little bit. I like that they've got bottle cage bosses right there, so you could add an accessory in addition to using that rear rack. We talked a little bit about the motor, but it's rated at 250 to 400 watt output. They say up to 60 newton meters of torque, which is decent. It's spoked in with thicker 13 gauge spokes versus 14 gauge up front. That's a little bit more flexible and stuff, but since you've got a motor in there, the motor weighs about 7 pounds. And then the drivetrain, I would say this is kind of cheaper. You know, Shimano Tourney, it's entry level derailleur, maybe not quite as durable, not quite as lightweight, and it's kind of loose, right? So we're in the third gear down from the lowest. That's a decent gear for starting out, but if you're climbing, you'd want to be in that biggest sprocket there to get that good mechanical advantage. Or for starting, the bike's about 52.3 pounds. It's not super heavy, and actually kind of surprisingly light considering the steel fork and steel fenders, but without a suspension fork, you end up saving on that weight. So I would say this is a capable motor, but it's definitely more of an assisting kind of motor. And you do have to pedal with a little bit more power to activate the torque sensor compared to a cadence sensor, right? It's a little bit more active. There's no throttle or anything like that. So kind of keep that in mind. Is that the sort of riding that you're up for? It's definitely going to help you climb. It's going to help you get started, but you have to put a little bit more energy into the system. So coming back to the sprockets back here, 12 to 28 tooth, whereas a nicer setup might have 11 to 32 tooth or 11 to 42 tooth, and then you get those bigger sprockets and it gets it easier to start and a little bit more comfortable to ride at higher speeds. The top assisted speed here is 20 miles per hour, 32 kilometers per hour. 44 tooth chainring up here with this nice plastic guide, so it actually keeps the chain from flopping off if you're going over some bumpy terrain. That's pretty nice. And then the battery pack, where we're talking about the positioning and how it's inset. This offers 36 volts, 11.6 amp hours, and there's the charging port right there. It can be charged on or off the bike, and it actually tips out to the side when you unlock it from the other side. So let's do that. Just twist this. It is sprung, so twist it like that, and then push on it. It sort of tips out. Weighs about 5.5 pounds. Got a little handle lip at the top. I recommend storing this in a cool, dry location, and, you know, trying to keep it at least half full if you know you aren't going to use it for a while, just so the cells aren't stressed. They're not like super full, and they're also not at zero. If you let it go all the way out, that can sort of be hard on the cells, and this is a more expensive component to replace. And I've noticed getting it back in can be a little bit tricky. You just want to line it up perfectly down there. And then there we go, it clicks in, we're all good. You can take the keys out, make sure it's secure. I noticed also that if you haven't ridden the bike for a while, there's this little power button that also shows you like how full the battery is on that infographic. There's 5 ticks there, so 20% increments, whereas up here there are only 3 30% increments, and the display leaves something to be desired. Like it's just kind of basic. It's an LED readout. Speed is only available in miles per hour. Got those 3 dots, so 30%. That if you get down to that last dot, there's a big difference between 30% and like 5%, and you can't see that. It's not as precise. And then we start out in standard, but you can go down to eco to preserve the battery and get a little less assistance, or high for zippier feel, and then maybe climbing applications. Lights, so you press that button and see how it went brighter here. We press it again, it goes dim. So in dim, that's for use at night, because they don't want to blind you. And then both of these lights are active. I have noticed that the little leads here that plug into the light, they can get kind of bumped out of position. So just keep an eye on that, and maybe, especially when you're assembling or if you're pedaling, try not to bump those. I do love how, you know, these cables are wrapped pretty nicely, and they're routed internally through the frame back here and then tucked out of the way. The bottom bracket, you know, it's okay. Like the wires are a little bit exposed, but you'll notice that the disc brake caliper is mounted low versus up high. It's not going to get in the way of that rack. So a lot of little things. They've done a lot of things right here, and they're just trying to keep that price point, that $15.99. They got to make some compromises to get there. And I think some of the hardware is just a little bit more basic, so you want to be careful with it and help make it last. Okay, so there's the lights, there's the power button. I think we're all good. I'm just gonna hop on this thing. I do want to point out that I'm wearing pants, and that plastic guide's gonna double as a bit of a guard, but it's not gonna protect from back here. So if you're wearing a skirt or a dress, just keep an eye on that so you don't get it kind of messy and greasy. This other model back here, the Brio, it has an alloy cover, so that's one of the benefits. But again, it's $100 more for that bike. It's a different style. It's not quite as relaxed, a little bit more upright. I'm just gonna hop on this thing, pedal around, take it all the way up to high, and here we go. Braking pretty well, even one-handed. That's always nice. Pedaling up this hill, I'm not having to get up out of the saddle. Just try to do some no hands. It's a little bit breezy here today. There we go. And I haven't been having any trouble with like speed wobble, which is where the front sort of like wobbles. This bike feels a little bit more, I don't know if it's just the geometry or maybe the stiffness because of that double tube design. And they do not have a high step model for me to test, unfortunately. So I'm just doing my best with the step through. Pretty quiet, pretty natural feeling on that motor. Definitely something I appreciate. And now that we found this area that's a little bit shadier, you can start to see the display a little bit more. And a little bit of the light on that wall. Not very much, it's not the brightest light, but it's also kind of a midday ride here, so it's fairly bright out. Okay guys, from here you can see the 42 tooth chain ring with the plastic guide, that clear plastic slap guard. The chain does bounce around a little bit, because again, the derailleur is fairly entry level. And then the motor, you get a feel for what it sounds like. I am going to be riding in the highest level of assist, so it'll be fairly pronounced when I'm really, you know, pedaling hard. But otherwise, just enjoy the ride. Overall, pretty good. you know, it's a healthy range, enough to just cruise around the neighborhood, do a little bit of climbing. It'd be nice to have one lower gear just for those really steep climbs, or if this is loaded up with gear. But yeah, the drivetrain is working pretty well. This is my first time reviewing the SR Suntour brushless DC hub motor. It is a geared motor, so it freewheels without creating any friction. It's compact, it's lightweight compared to gearless. There's no magnetic drag. And I welcome you to chime in. At Electric Bike Review, I've got this forum section, and there's a whole area just dedicated to IZIP and also Suntour. So if you get this and you have any feedback, maybe go there and you can help some people or sound off with your questions. And another quick point about the new SR Suntour drive system here. I recommend turning it on and waiting a second, not pedaling, not moving the motor, applying any torque, because I think it's kind of zeroing out and calibrating itself when you first start. It'd be nice to get your feedback if you actually buy this bike and use it on what works best. I've been trying to leave it off. I have gotten an error a couple times riding, or it was like 1, and it just, I was trying to ride and it wasn't working. And right now, the battery's on, you know, it's charged up, it's locked into position, and you know, it says 5 bars, but it was kind of taking a minute. It didn't turn on before. I was pressing power. Now it's on, it's calibrated, and now I can go ahead, take it up to high, and pedal some more. So I'm really trying to be thorough here. I don't think it's fair to bash a system that I haven't really owned, but it is new, and so I'm trying to be thoughtful and sensitive about how reliable it is and what kind of quirks it has. And that's the idea with the forums and with the comments, is that you guys can help each other. Because $15.99, I mean, that's a good price point, but it's hard to say exactly how this is going to work. And they do have some dealers and stuff, and they've got the Electric Bicycle Competency Center here, and the idea is to be really supportive of you guys and to chime in on the forums and stuff. But I think the best feedback comes from you, actual owners. This is Chris from Propel. We've been hanging out, checking out some of the Raleigh bikes this week, and it's nice to have a kind of a co-pilot going along. So carry on, bud.
All right, let's do it.
See, he's a little bit more relaxed, kind of upright body position. He's not having to lean forward, which could start to feel a little bit uncomfortable on your back and neck, especially if it's bumpy. You can adjust the tire pressure a little bit so that you're not feeling every single bump or every single crack. I'm gonna go over on your right side. You got that rear light looking pretty good. Switching gears. Very nice. How's it feel?
Yeah, it's pretty comfortable. I mean, I like this position. Pretty upright, just kind of pretty relaxed.
Yeah, you can spot traffic, talk with your friends.
Yeah. Definitely. You could see riding down the beach path.
Yeah.
Cruising around.
Very cool. Well, you guys, I think that's about it. That's the IZIP E3 Simi, named after Simi Valley, I suspect. Hope that helps you out. Feel free to chime in with any questions, or feedback or suggestions. We'll do our best to help you out, and have fun, ride safe.